there's this one dominant narrative in Delhi and Bombay, and I'm sure some of us have heard it in this audience, that millennials are just addicted to social media, that they can't get off Facebook, WhatsApp, TikTok, or Instagram. They're self-destructing on these platforms and losing out on real opportunities. But in my 2 years' worth of field research, all across India, I've come across countless young Indians, those who've been sealed into cycles of poverty, discrimination, or an otherwise ordinary existence, using social media to catapult themselves towards a better life. The internet has single-handedly leveled an information and opportunity gap between Indian and Western millennials, giving millions access which was previously out of bounds for older generations. One of them was Nazneen. Nazneen was 26 when she got married. Her husband was an engineer, an aircraft engineer based in Qatar. Her sister told her that he made a lot of money, and her family reassured her that she'd have a comfortable life. What more could you want, they asked her. And she had a good life. It was a pretty good life, but for the first month. Then the emotional abuse began. For the first few months, she thought he was having an affair. She then confronted him about it. He was drunk and he denied it. And then he started beating her. Nazneen's physical abuse continued for 10 months when she decided she couldn't take it anymore. She called the Indian consulate in Doha and escaped her abusive marriage. At the time, she was also 2 months pregnant. Now, what do you think would have happened to someone like Nazneen 15 or 20 years ago? Her fate would likely have been consigned to anything from nothingness to death. Returning home to Hyderabad, pregnant and penniless, Nazneen thought her life was finished. She decided she would have her baby and figure things out afterwards. Her parents never pressured her to get married again. But one day, 4 months into her pregnancy, she was scrolling through YouTube and a video caught her eye. It was a makeup tutorial. Now, I think some in the audience may have seen one of these videos. She clicked on the video of a famous beauty star speaking in Hindi and her favorite products and became an addict. Nazneen probably watched weeks worth of those videos. She soon became an expert on applying makeup. Now, Nazneen had delivered her son, and apart from the pocket money that her parents gave her, she didn't have much spending power. However, she had learned how to apply makeup, and she decided doing so for brides in her neighborhood. Soon, her bedroom at her parents' house had become a beauty parlor, and she expanded from makeup to nails. All of her technique had been learned off of YouTube and the internet. 2 years later, when I met Nazneen this January, she was opening her own salon just off the highway from the Hyderabad airport into the city. Nazneen's story is a millennial story. She walked out of an abusive marriage and built her own business entirely through the internet, using Facebook and WhatsApp to generate word of mouth and find clients, turning adversity into great opportunity. Now, the point of this talk is not to promote Nazneen's business, but to talk about a radical change transforming India today. Technology, the internet, and social media have been the rocket fuel for incredible social disruption, good and bad, across the country. The ability to define yourself outside traditional frameworks and systems of identity through smartphones and social media are creating millions of aspirational Indians who are harnessing technology to write their own destinies. Now, when I was preparing for this TED Talk, I looked at other TED Talks. I typed millennials and social media, and I came across one talk which would have been viewed millions of times by a computer science professor, and he was basically telling people, well, if you want to be happy, you should get off social media. And sure, that's true for some. The addiction and toxicity of social media can cause serious pain and agony. But what this dominant narrative ignores is that an entire generation in India today has not been curbed, but much rather empowered and profoundly shaped by these digital communities and the internet. In a country like India, social media is not only helping in breaking the bonds of social stratification, but more importantly, it is promoting the sense of self, which has never existed. It is giving young Indians agency that never existed earlier, creating new opportunities and modes of self-development. Let me tell you how. Now, no one in Nazneen's life had ever thought she would start her own business. Her entire life had been mapped out for her, like millions of other young Indians. She would go to school, go to college, get married, and start a family. Now, that all changed when the violence began. She decided she was not going to be another victim of domestic abuse, something which isn't just endemic to India, but to communities all around the world. And she also decided she didn't want to live off her parents. So what did she do? The internet became her teacher. YouTube, WhatsApp, and Facebook became her platforms to find clients. All of her advertising was free, and the word of mouth praise for Nazneen's services spread like wildfire. Today, Nazneen doesn't just support herself and her son, but even contributes money towards her parents' household expenses. She has become financially independent and is a successful entrepreneur. Social media in India, in many ways, is toxic. The caste system and communal divisions have a way of getting even uglier on the internet than in real life. But even more than education, social media has made people the masters of their own destinies. Now, everyone acknowledges that social media has completely changed our lives. But few understand its sociological effects on an entire generation of people. It has truly replaced the biggest forces which shape a young person's identity in India today: their education, their friends or their larger communities, and traditional media. All three of these can now be found in the phone in your pocket, just one click away. Now, for a long time, education and wealth had separated outcomes between youth in the global south and Western youth. Young people in developing countries were always a step behind because they couldn't access a good education, or they didn't have enough money to develop the tools that they would need to succeed in the modern economy. The internet has totally changed that. $1 data through Geo and 5,000 rupees smartphones have brought the entire world to communities all across India. Not just those in Delhi and Bombay, but those in Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand as well. Youth today don't need a fancy tutor to solve their math problems, they can just get them solved online. This has truly had a disproportionate impact on the lower and lower middle classes in India today. Now, elders always know best is one of the key philosophies of Indian society, that the young should always listen to their parents and follow the plans they have made for them, and that they'll have a comfortable life if they do so. Making independent decisions is risky, largely because it embraces the unknown, but also because it upends existing systems of respect and power. As a result, young Indians today, economically, socially, and politically, continue abiding by decisions that others have made for them. Whether it's in studying for the civil services or marrying the girl or boy chosen by their family, these decisions are always taken because they're safe. But on the internet, social media, and smartphones, young people have much greater freedom than they do in their real lives. They're making hundreds, if not thousands, of decisions in a day. Whether to like a photo, watch a video, or learn something new on Wikipedia. This new form of control is truly exhilarating. 30 years ago, men and women were expected to dress conservatively and not attract attention. There was no way for an aspirational young Indian or a young person in a small town to present themselves to the outside world on their own terms. But today, young India decides how it wants to present itself to the world beyond. Taking a selfie, which actually really is an act of narcissism, is also a form of beta testing of myself. In opening your camera, choosing the right angle, and taking a photo of yourself, you are deciding how the world wants to see you. Going on an aero bridge to get to your airplane might not be a huge deal for many in this audience. But for the huge middle class in India today, it is a huge achievement. And being able to show that to their social networks is a phenomenal leap forward. This fairly simple act of taking a selfie is anything but simple. It is underpinned by the possession of economic and social power to define yourself on your own terms, and it is this power which defines millennials more than any other generation in India today. Now, selfies at their very core are part of this newfound sense of excitement and energy among young Indians in showcasing themselves to the world. Now, there's a lot of talk about technology being the biggest economic disruptor in the 21st century. That artificial intelligence and machine learning are going to render millions jobless and force them to contemplate the very meaning of work and value. And that's very true for many in industrialized economies. But for millennials in India, technology is leading widespread social disruption, breaking the bonds of age-old traditions, systems of power, and ways of life, and creating a generation more aware of the world and assertive of its own identity and beliefs. Let me tell you about Sumit Samos. Sumit Samos is a Dalit rapper from Odisha. He grew up in a ghetto where he rarely interacted with upper castes. When he began studying at JNU, he tried joining campus politics, but found left-wing groups who only wanted him to stick posters on walls. Like many others who've heard legendary American rapper Tupac, he got inspired and began listening to him as a student. He started uploading his own YouTube videos about his experiences of caste discrimination and how supposedly liberal people found it odd meeting an English-speaking Dalit. Following Rohit Vemula's suicide in 2016, Dalits all across India began demanding greater justice, and Sumit's videos started attracting widespread attention, regularly getting more than 50,000 views. He launched his own YouTube channel and adopted the name Dalit Boy. Since then, he has performed in Paris, Mauritius, and countless campuses across India. In a short period of time, he has become one of the most prominent young Dalit voices in the country, challenging upper caste hegemony. Social media gave him a stage and a platform to rap when most other physical places weren't accessible to him. If it weren't for YouTube, we probably wouldn't be talking about Sumit today. So for minorities, social media provides a meeting space to talk when doing so in public might not be safe for them. For women, social media provides them with a platform to express their views when physical spaces and social norms exclude them. For everyone else, technology provides access, not just to information, but to life-changing personal and professional opportunities. A survey conducted by the World Economic Forum found that 81% of millennial respondents in India rely on social media and the internet for employment opportunities. So that's probably LinkedIn, Naukri.com, and a few others like that. One of the questions I get asked most about my research is, well, Vivan, how are millennials different? And what makes them different? People don't know. They really don't know about this incredible generation which is going to shape India, and they're also not prepared for it. Now, while my research answers some of these questions, I want the audience to think about something. How do you respond when someone asks you what you do? Now, most of you will say you're a student because you perhaps spend 5 to 8 to 10 hours a day studying or in class. But what does someone who spends that kind of time on their phone or the internet or social media say? Do they say they're a phoner? Perhaps not. But what I want to highlight is that as millennials spend increasing amounts of their time online, it cannot be more important to understand the impact of these digital communities on their lives. Now, my research and interviews have found that social media is giving Indian millennials something previous generations never had. It is putting the power of technology in their hands, and it's giving them a choice. Number one, do I want to empower myself through the internet and social media, or do I want to feel left behind? Number two, do I want visibility and anonymity? In other words, can I express myself online when I can't do so in real life? And number three, do I want to access the networks available on my phone and become a student or entrepreneur? Or become a troll and get radicalized? Now, each of these options gives millennials a choice to use technology responsibly and powerfully. Nazneen and Sumit made their decisions. It's time for the rest of us to make our own. Thank you.